Hey, what's up, y'all? I know it's been a long good while since I made any kind of videos, but that's, in all honesty, it's not just because, I've been busy as hell at the office, but it's also been because I've been kind of trying to turn a new leaf. In case y'all haven't noticed, y'all noticed that I haven't really been uh, making videos so much concerning, topics that I used to talk about. Because and it's not so much because you have to forgive me, I'm smoking, so I'm gonna look. Felt like a piece of bud went in my almost went in my throat. That's what I just spat out. Yeah, I've actually been meaning to turn a new leaf, which is one of the reasons why I've been making too many videos like that, where I kind of stay off the subject of current situations, because I'm fully aware of the passport bros, the fact that so-called sisters are getting evicted. I say sister very loosely, very loosely, and that ain't my sister. Got me so messed up. So I'm very much abreast of current events, because like I said, I got access to the internet. And one thing that I've realized is that the internet, YouTube, keeps me more abreast of current events than goddamn regular cable TV. Ain't that crazy? My awareness of the world must have quadrupled since I've been uh, watching and been subscribed to YouTube, and that's been at least since 2007, 2008 or so. I remember when I first started watching YouTube, I used it to catch up on a lot of old shows, catch up on episodes that, I mean, being as young as I was, it would have just been utterly impossible to catch up on. Because, like I said, being at the mercy of TV and having a curfew, as a kid, you could only, do so much. Like one TV series that comes to mind is Mortal Kombat Conquest, where I pretty much had all my favorite characters in this expanded universe, if you will, outside the movies, and of course, the video games, where the main character was Kung Lao. So and also with the help of Wikipedia, I was able to see why it had such a sleazy ending to it, where Shao Kahn pretty much ended up conquering all the mofos in the series, and and that was the end of it. It wasn't no reboot. It wasn't no like, nah, that was just the end of it. But I'm trying this new thing. I'm trying this new thing where instead of ranting, instead of directing my energy, instead of gloating about the fact that brothers are running the greener pastures or whatever kind of subject that's, going on in our, in current state of affairs, where I'm putting in my 2 cents and whatnot, I've decided maybe I shouldn't put in my 2 cents. Maybe I should just completely shut the F up about it. And by doing so, I express my utmost form of apathy. Well, better yet, I express my utmost form of contempt via apathy. By not even talking about it, not even saying nothing about it. Because I don't know who it was. Who I heard this from, whether it was the Angry Man or Kevin Samuels, when he was still alive, who said that you shouldn't be concerned when men are talking and complaining and bitching and moaning and whatnot. You should be concerned when they're not. When they just shut the fuck up about it. Don't even speak on the matter. And with me looking ahead for greener pastures my damn self, I figure it just makes sense to, be abreast of the situation, be aware of what's going on. Of course, we know what's going on over on that side of the pond. Bullets flying, niggas dying. Same old hood nigga shit. Shit that's been going on for the past 50 and damn near 60 years. Niggas literally taking each other out. And those few of us brothers who've been escaped from the madness are going out seeking greener pastures. And as you can imagine, they mad about it. Hell yeah, they mad about it. And even though this video doesn't have anything to do with passport bros, it definitely has to do with something that's been near and dear in my heart since I was at least 16. So these past 20 years. And it further justifies me going into college the first time and getting my major in Japanese, in the hopes that one day I'll actually be living in Japan. How's that for passport bros? The whole idea of going abroad for greener pastures, just for the sake of greener pastures, as much as I've tried to promote it, I mean, this is exactly what I meant when I was out there trying to promote the whole idea of learning different languages. Because if you go to Brazil, you're not going to have too many people down there speaking English. So it behooves you to learn some Portuguese. I mean, if you're going to be on some passport bro type stuff and you go into Colombia, it behooves you to learn Spanish. I've been saying this till I've been blue in the face. And this is the epitome of why I promote foreign language learning. But again, the more I look at this country, the more I realize that it is the very essence and nature of the United States of A that has been fucking me over as far as my ability to do something with these languages. Because at face value, like I said, you would think someone who claims to know some 50 plus languages and is pretty damn good in most of them would be of high value. would be like Kevin Samuel said, a high value man. And I never really liked that term. I thought it was cliche. Like, you considering yourself a high value man just off the fact that you put on a monkey suit and wear cologne and just ride around looking sharp. Really making yourself out to be a target for the goons, for the thieves. You really just putting yourself in a position to get robbed, my G. If we're gonna be real. But back to Japanese. Um, so yeah, since the pandemic, at least since the pandemic, and this is something I want to talk about that's near and dear to my heart, and like I said, has been near and dear to my heart since I was 16. Because like I said, I want to turn a new leaf as far as when I get on YouTube and talk about certain things that are at least within my realm, things that I'm trying to enact, and things that have nothing to do with that fucked up community that I had to literally escape from with my life. So since I was 16, I have been literally enamored with the practice of Japanese swordsmanship, Japanese fencing. Now, first thought that comes to most people's minds when they think of Japanese fencing is kendo. But when I think of Japanese fencing, I I revert to a more ancient practice of kendo, because kendo was some sport that was made during the 19th century, during the Meiji period. And that art being Kenjutsu. Now, I've spent the vast majority of my life practicing martial arts, different forms of martial arts. But if there's one art that I'm pretty sure for certain that I do want to master, it is the art of Kenjutsu. It's the sword fencing methods that the samurai practiced and employed, which is exactly why I didn't have I was very and I remember too when I was stuck during my years in Memphis, how I had the option of kendo, because in fact there's somebody I knew very well who actually owned this martial arts store. He was basically a kendo master. Basically, he had like a, if I'm not mistaken, he had like a 6th dan in kendo, or 6 or 7 iaido as well, which I like to refer to as iaijitsu, because I like to keep things old school when it comes to budo or bujitsu, if you will. So instead of judo, I prioritize jujitsu. Instead of iaido, I prioritize iaijitsu. And as you know, instead of kendo, I prioritize kenjutsu. Even though I'm very familiar with kendo, I'm very familiar with iaido, I'm very familiar with judo and aikido. I mean, these all being arts that I've engaged in. That being your kendo, your iaido, your judo, and aikido. whether I took them in a class or just one of those freebie classes, or I did it for a semester, for the PE, for your PE requirement. I took a semester of judo. I took a semester of aikido. But even before doing so, I was enamored and intrigued with the studies of Kenjutsu and Jujitsu, Iijitsu, Naginata Jutsu, Sojutsu. And very begrudgingly, I always knew that there has to be arts out there. I mean, there has to be books out there detailing the techniques of Kenjutsu and Jujitsu as well, the other forms of Bujitsu. I said to myself, surely there are arts out there. I mean, I keep saying arts. There are books out there. Yeah, I'm having a Freudian slip. There are books out there that will detail the techniques within a ryuha or style of Kenjutsu, which at the time I didn't even know too many styles of Kenjutsu, if any at all. Because at the time, the only thing that I had for sword arts, and to this day, it's my foundation, is I believe the first one is called Musojikiden Eishin Ryu, and Iijitsu, i.e. Iaido now. It's considered in the Iaido style now. And there's another style that's very close, very similar sounding to the aforementioned. I believe it's called Honmon Enshin Ryu, Iai Kenpo, which consists of Iijitsu techniques as well as Kenjutsu techniques. But the primary style of those styles is Iijitsu, which for those of you who don't know is the art of drawing the sword. And it wasn't until later on in life that I realized just how vastly different Iijitsu and Kenjutsu really are. Even though, like I said, I've known the difference for the past 20 years. But my foundations were Iijitsu, i.e. Iaido. And I begrudgingly, in the hopes that I would one day come across the old school arts or some sort of format, some sort of books, because in the English speaking world, you will be hard pressed. I mean, it's a uphill battle finding anything on Koryu Bujitsu, old school Japanese martial arts. Basically, the arts of the samurai, the martial arts that the samurai practiced, if you will. Because for years I've known that there are at least 18 different disciplines that samurai were trained in, and it all consisted on his reality as far as him being on the battlefield and using a variety of different weaponry, like for the most part bow and arrow. So that's your Kyujitsu, or nowadays it's due to modernization it's known as Kyudo. Jojutsu, which is basically a staff, but now it's called Jodo. Bojutsu, Sojutsu, which is the use of the yari or the spear, Naginata Jutsu, which is the halberd, and of course Kenjutsu, and for unarmed combat, Jujutsu. And the reason why I was so intrigued by this is because Jujitsu was such a deadly art. I mean, from the sources that I get, particularly the Secrets of the Samurai. I mean, but I've run across numerous sources, you know, of jujitsu being, on several occasions outlawed during the feudal period because of just how lethal it was. So, I would always, with the limited resources that I had with judo, with kendo, with iaido, and I dare even say karate do. All these different modern day martial arts that the Japanese uphold to the highest esteem, rather than old school martial arts. The martial arts that their samurai ancestors practiced and only knew, would have looked at kendo and been like, what the hell is that? So, for years, I begrudgingly preserved what material I could find on kendo, what material I could find on judo, what material I could find on aikido, in the hopes that one day I would evolve and transform all of that and take it back old school into kenjutsu, iaijutsu, jujitsu, aikijujitsu, using the budo as a cross reference, as what these arts really are, sports. Because many people get confused between what's the difference between the do arts and the jutsu arts. Kendo, for example, literally means the way of the sword. And I can feel that because what it promotes is this spiritual guidance as far as basically being one with the sword. So on paper, conceptually, it makes perfect sense to be a kendoist. I mean, especially someone as devout to kenjutsu as me, right? But then you go there and you find out that they're practicing with little sticks, twigs. They call them shinai. And their techniques are very much limited, albeit they're very fast. Don't get me wrong, they're very fast. They just don't. I mean, they do the entire art of Japanese swordsmanship little to no justice, if you ask me. And I'm sorry, I just couldn't I couldn't stomach the idea of getting involved in art or sport rather, like kendo. Even though even though kendo has many practitioners who also practice kenjutsu, particularly this one style called onowai itoryu, and apparently tenin rishin ryu as well. And it's very ironic because tenin rishin ryu was probably like the last kenjutsu style in existence. It was founded just a little bit before the Meiji period, or probably during the Meiji Restoration period, by which kendo eventually was created. So you see a lot of influence. You see a lot of Like the three styles that I see that are usually intertwined with kendo are Onowai Itoryu Kenjutsu, um, Nitoryu, Niten Ichiryu, which is Miyamoto Musashi style of two swords, as well as Tenin Rishinryu Kenjutsu. But during those years, and this was also the time that I was also studying ninjutsu. But it's like I begrudgingly studied what I had on deck, as well as very little exposure to Chinese martial arts as well. Like, and it really wasn't a lot. Most of it was like basic China, basic Tai Chi Chuan, Xing Yi Chuan. It was almost like an intro to these arts, like Xing Yi, Bagua, Tai Chi, and believe it or not, even Shaolin. And I remember having this complete volume set of Northern Shaolin, and now I can't seem to find it. But interestingly enough, when it comes to the Chinese arts, even though I can't find, you know, these books that I had on Shaolin, because they're literally out of print. I'm, my jaw's hitting the ground because just like, it's almost like I'm in the age of wonder, because not only am I discovering these Japanese arts, I'm discovering Chinese arts too that I otherwise had little to no access to, like Baji Chuan and Tongbei Chuan. I just bought something on Tongbei Chuan. Arts that I thought I would never have access to, because they're just so rare. So during the pandemic, about 2 years ago, after all this time, now, mind you, about 2016, I want to say, I finally encountered a book that purely taught Kenjutsu techniques. And prior to, with the exception of Muso Jikiden Eishin Ryu and that Honmon Enshin Ryu Iai Kenpo, aside from those two styles, which I consider my Iai styles, my sword drawing styles, I say that my first style that, in addition to Iai Jitsu, as well as Bojutsu and Naginata Jutsu, taught me Kenjutsu. My first style was this style called Tenshin Shoden Katori Shintoryu. Tenshin Shoden Katori Shintoryu was my first literal Kenjutsu style, where it was just pure Kenjutsu, or it had pure Kenjutsu forms and nothing more, nothing less. Even though it had a few Ei forms, it didn't go nearly in depth with Ei and Bato as the two aforementioned styles. And I was so content, I was so stoked having encountered something like that. Classic Bujitsu. And not only that, being apparently one of the oldest forms of Kenjutsu out there. I dare say one of the first, one of the very first, very ancient. Goes back as far as the 12th century, right around pretty much the inception of the samurai. So it's a very, very classic style, very classic style. So I was very content, and I was good. I would have been like, this is the style that I know, this is the style that I stick with. Assuming that I would have never encountered any other Kenjutsu styles. Well, something very miraculous happened about 2 years ago, in which, because I was always doing all this research on Amazon, and I finally started running into more, books on jujitsu versus judo, like Shibukawa Ryu, more books on Aiki Jiu-Jitsu, and I noticed that these books were written in Japanese, and that just, it just spoke volumes to, having to go to the source rather than looking around here and there for some book to be written in English about these classic Japanese arts. You have to go to the source. And it was then that I discovered, shortly after, Yagyu Shinkage Ryu Kenjutsu. I discovered more forms. I discovered Kendo's predecessor, Ito Ryu Kenjutsu, Onawa Ito Ryu Kenjutsu. I discovered other variations of Ito Ryu Kenjutsu, like what's the one? Hokushin Ito Ryu. There's another one, and I actually own some material on it. It escapes me though. Yeah, Mizoguchi wa Ito Ryu. If I haven't said it already, Kashima Shinden Jiki Shinkage Ryu Kenjutsu, Kashima Shin Ryu Kenjutsu, Jigen Ryu Kenjutsu. So, after years of faithfully waiting, after years of testing what would most likely be Kenjutsu techniques with what limited resources that I had, I finally unraveled between Amazon and eBay, coming from the source, me in Japan, a limitless plethora of Kenjutsu books and Kenjutsu DVDs. My Niwanin Ryu Kenjutsu. All at my disposal. And it's very ironic because I'm finally in a position to where, I can actually afford to get this stuff. Because, needless to say, it's pretty damn expensive. I just bought this book on Jigen Ryu Kenjutsu. And next week I'll be buying Hokushin Ito Ryu, which again is just another branch of Ito Ryu. The original Ito Ryu, the first one at least, was Onawa Ito Ryu. But apparently there have been many forms of Ito Ryu that derived shortly after. And it goes without saying, I plan on acquiring as much material from them as I can too. And it goes without saying, I've been collecting since then. I've been collecting books and DVDs on the art of Kenjutsu, preserving this stuff. And it makes me wonder if I'm destined to be some sort of Kensen, which is basically a sword saint. Someone who has utterly devoted his entire life. Almost like, I dare say, you see, it kind of reminds me of, the Shaolin movies where, they'll have some dude who goes to the Shaolin temple and he goes up to the monks and he tells them, hey, I want to learn Kung Fu. I want to be a Shaolin monk. And they're like, okay, well, wait right here. And they close the door. They close the door on them and just leave that shit. Just leave them out there. You know what I'm saying? Just leave him out there because they're trying to test his devotion to see if he really means what he says, or if he's just eventually, in hopes that he's just gonna go away. But he never does. Like, day in, day out, for months, if not years, he's sitting outside the temple gates, patiently waiting outside until the the monks receive him, and and then then the weeding out process begins, because it goes without saying, Shaolin Kung Fu is a very, very difficult style to master. It tests the limits of your physical prowess, which is probably why I'll never be a Shaolin monk. So I'm very much pleased, happy, stoked that I get to participate in